My name is Ahmed Hamden. I am AFAX fellow, 24, so my fellowship is for 1 year. I'm fellow in Egyptology, and I'm fortunate that I have a previous experience here in Oxford. I have been here like 16 years ago. I was awarded a scholarship by the Egyptian government to do part of my PhD. It was 2007 and 2008. Then I was fortunate again to get more grants by the British Museum. So I had good connections with the staff here, like professors in Oxford, at the British Museum, Liverpool. So this year, what I'm doing in my project is about transferring, or some metaphors of transferring legitimacy from the king to his son in the Old Kingdom. So we had in ancient Egypt many scenes and representation showing this way in order the predecessor king can transfer this power to his son, to successor. One of the things that is very familiar in ancient Egypt since early dynasties was the royal car. The royal car is a figure which represents two arms, and to protect its owner, it expresses itself as two upraised arms in order to protect the owner, as I said. And it was divided into many sections. Like the first one was commoners, for like individuals. They had a car, so they have to depict this inside their tombs. Secondly was the royal ones, which the kings portrayed in their temples and tombs. The thirdly was the divine one, which is the gods. So what I'm doing the royal part. So I have studied already. My PhD was the New Kingdom, which dynasty is 18th to 21, to the beginning or to the end of 20s. And I had a fellowship at UCLA, Los Angeles, and I pursued an article about the royal car during the Middle Kingdom. So by extending the study score now to include the Old Kingdom, that's what I'm doing here in Oxford now. I think this will enrich more information to comprehend and to understand the functions of the royal car, and especially in different contexts, like through several periods like this. What I'm doing here is the main goal is to create a catalog of published and unpublished representations and objects dealing with the royal car in the Old Kingdom. And I think this is very important. Many scholars have studied this, but separately. Like we have, for example, one of the publications, publications by GK for Pepys II, one of the 6 dynastic kings. We had many representations, and I think this publication is too old now, but still one of the sources for us to see the representations of Pepys II, who is one of the more frequent representations during this time. So I think one of the benefits, what I'm doing, I'm gathering all together. It's like it was separate works. People or scholars publish this work, this material, without analyzing, or like put this all together, and they're trying to interpret the text, the relief, the location, why it's represented like this, the thematic context, all of it. So I believe it will be useful, I hope. And one of the things, the challenges I had while I'm doing this here is, number one, lack of text. And why? Why is we don't have like complete text? Simply, it is very old time. Let's speak about 2600 to 2100 BC. So it is, yes, it's a long time ago. So obviously, like when I studied the New Kingdom, we had many fragments in the New Kingdom. Middle Kingdom is still like, it's a full scenery, thematic. You can observe, you can see what is going on the scene, the whole scene. With the Old Kingdom, unfortunately, I wouldn't say it is like severe destruction, but yeah, I would say mostly fragments. So what I'm doing is like trying to, like, as I said in the beginning, the ka is two upraised arms enclosing the royal one, enclosing the royal name of the king. So sometimes I find a part of a hand holding or enclosing the king's name. So I start to see like this from my side, from my perspectives. It leads me to more interpretations. So it might be like a part of the royal ka, but it's fragment, and the whole scene is damaged. In other cases, like I found remaining texts, like the royal ka associated with several formula, like in hieroglyphs, like kanisut, hanch, berduat, jipat. That means the living royal ka in front of the palace and the morning house. So sometimes when I see part of the text and the whole scene is damaged, I can assume that this scene most probably with the king and his ka. So usually the king appears in order, this is a power which transfers the power from the father to his son. So usually it appears behind him, and this was very common in the Old Kingdom. I would say I studied my PhD about 350 representations. The ka appeared behind the king, the Middle Kingdom as well, except one scene, just one. The royal ka is facing the king, not behind him, and fanning him. He was Ramesses III. And it is striking that I have to say I'm very grateful to Oxford, because when I found out this, I was in the Sackler library. It was Sackler at the time, it was 2008 or 2009. So this was one of the publication of a steward for the objects of Petrie Museum at UCL, London. So it is fragments, a small fragment there. So next day, I had my Oxford tube to London straight away to go and see what is going on. Really? There is one exception, yes. So it means that the Egyptians portrayed something very unusual. But otherwise, it appears behind the king. There are two ways of depicting the royal ka. The first one is a standard. It means a standard with the two arms, two upraised arms, enclosing the king's name. And one hand, it holds the life symbol, which is the ankh, and sometimes the other hand, medu shipsi. It is a long staff, which ended with a head. So this, like the first part, this is very popular in the Old Kingdom and over these periods. And the other one is a human figure. So, you know that Oxford is very famous for the Griffith Institute. We have the Griffith Institute here, and Howard Carter and Tutankhamun. So if you go to the tomb of Tutankhamun, you will find that the king is escorted with his ka. It is human size, same size as the king, and the only exception, there are two arms, upraised arms, upon the head, enclosing the name, the king's name. So I would just like say like more about the importance of studying the royal ka. Back to the mythology in ancient Egypt, Osiris was killed by his brother Set, and he became afterward to like the king of the underworld. And his son Horus, the falcon god, revenged to his father, and he defeated his uncle. And then one of his titles is Avenger for his father. So when he won and defeated his uncle, his father rewarded him, and he embraced him with his two arms. So it means he transferred the divinity power, the divine power, from his body to his son Horus. And therefore, the Egyptian king considered himself as an image of Horus on earth, because Horus was responsible for the whole earth. So he is the king of earth. So when a king rules in Egypt, it's like a semi-god. He is ruling on behalf of Horus. So let's go back to the royal car. So this is a method of the car, and as I said, is for commoners, royal, and divine for gods. They have the cars. So for the kings, the car, the two arms, including the cartouche or the Horus name. So let's say, at this point, when I came here and I started to study the Old Kingdom, I found that the Old Kingdom just only embraced only the Horus name. It is one of the titular names which takes shape, rectangular shape, and God Horus is perched upon this shape. It named Serech in hieroglyphs. And afterward, during the Middle and the New Kingdom, I already studied this. So I found that the two arms, including the cartouche of the king, sometimes the nomen and sometimes the pre-nomen. But in this case, what I'm doing in the Old Kingdom, it was early time of text, of how to depict text, to inscribe it, the representations. I think this was very early, so he had only the way of representing the Horus name. But let's go back to the connection. So the ka in general is to protect its owner. So the deceased in ancient Egypt has to respect and appreciate the ka, and they depicted many representations and reliefs showing this. And even when you say, like, for the ka of, for example, Amenhotep, it means as appreciation to his ka, because the ka will carry on with him after his death.
The image you described, the hands enclosing the name, why enclosing? What difference does it make if it's in front of or behind the king, or behind its representation?
Okay, so it is, I would say, two different questions. So I'll start with the first one. Why enclosing the name? Okay, I just work in titular names, and I had a paper accepted while I'm here by GH.
Congrats.
Yeah, it was about the personified royal names and how the king's names were provided with limbs, with hands and legs. And this is very unique. So I would say the titular names personified the king himself. It is like sometimes the king is not represented in the whole scene, but his name is enough. So yes, and not only this, the ancient Egyptians, personified different anthropomorphic figures with the elements of the name. For example, the name of King Ramses II. Ramses II, his name is Usir Matra Setib Inra. So sometimes, like Abu Simbel, the temple of Abu Simbel, Maat is a woman with a feather on her head. Usir is like short staff, stick, and Ray. So it shows the whole name as a woman with a solar disk on her head. It's like the whole name all together, and she's holding the vase. So it's Usir Matra. So you can read his name, and it is humanized. So I would say, if you are watching an advert nowadays, like M&M candies or Michelin wheels, I think you will observe they are doing personified objects, like a wheel with a head, with arms. A man is running, but his body is wheels. So yeah, so it is personification. So this occurred in ancient Egypt since early dynasties, like I would say proto-dynastic, when the king's name, the Serech name, had two arms and smiting the king's enemies. So here it is not just a name. The name for the king is more than a name. It is, and also like I would add something. It is the king's name. Amenhotep, for example, right? Have you heard of the name Amenhotep?
Yeah.
So can you imagine there are thousands, or I don't know, maybe millions Amenhotep in ancient Egypt?
Yeah.
Can you believe this? No, we have this. We have thousands. I would say a number, but I would say hundreds or thousands. Because it is like now, if let's say an example, like your name is Jackson, and you like Michael Jackson, so and you had a son, so literally you will go straight away to the name, stick with Michael. So you'll be so happy to have Michael Jackson, and your son is Michael Jackson, so because you like him. So this same in Egypt.
Interesting.
And the king name is also associated with the importance of the deity, the god at that time. Let's say Mentuhotep. His name is two parts. Montu, the god Montu, the god of war, and Hotep, which means pleased. So it means that that time, during the Middle Kingdom, the king is influenced with the cult of god Montu. Obviously, like for the New Kingdom, Amun, Karnak, Luxor, Thebes. So you will find Amenhotep the first, Amenhotep the second, Amenhotep the third, Amun. So his name appears more frequent. So I think that like the cult had a great influence, and therefore the commoners were named after their kings. So I published an article for a priest of purification. His name is Mentuhotep. So he's named after the king. So so the name for the ancient Egyptian symbolized not just only reality or ideology. It is the main factor of the kingship they appreciate. So his name, it is like in Arabic, when we people joke in the streets, they say, "My name is enough." It's like I'm famous enough that it's like when they have like arguments, say, "My name is enough." When you're very arrogant, I mean. So
can I ask what I want to ask a very specific question about this, and particularly the depiction. The arms, are the arms always portrayed the same way? Are they always depicted the same way, or is there an embracing arm, or is there a military stronger arm? Is the depiction of arms change with this over time between kingdoms?
I think this is one of the hardest questions. Why? Because they are still human beings. So they designed the relief and they follow, like steps, like engineering, and they have their sculptures. But sometimes we have mistakes that we have to be honest and say, like, are human beings. But their mistakes, I think, are few. But what we do sometimes, like we see the article, like architect didn't like follow the system or depictions we want to see, like most of the other monuments. But I would say, like, I am confident it was same. But sometimes you can find the depiction is, I would say the drawings are not great, but just like, I would say 1% or less, maybe less. Yeah, maybe less. So it's the same with two hands, and but that's only with the royal car, with the king's car. And as you asked me about this depiction, for the ordinary people, they didn't have any depictions. They had only text for the car. So they had a formula, magical formula, Hatib Dinisu. They inscribed this formula in order to help them in the afterlife, to support and to provide them with all their needs, what they had in their living time.
What was the you mean the formula?
Formula, like hymns. They write, like Hatib Dinisu, Uzir, it's like a very long text. And so it starts with like a praising to the god, the important gods of afterlife, another word, and then wishing the deceased to have, like, for example, bread, beer, ox, birds, linen, incense, ointment, and everything beautiful the earth gives and the earth creates to the ka of his name, then honored imha. So all this, like, because I know people, when you listen to, if I speak like hieroglyphs, it's like it's like Hatib Su, like say Uzir, Khenti Imenti, let's say Ta Henket, Ka Abid, Menchet Neb. It's like this, and they N the name of the deceased name, and then Imach, it's like the honored one. So they usually do this, and also they depict or then a fourth door in order, because we had the ka and the ba. The ba is a bird with a human head which flies every day and it goes to nature and spend some time under the tree, in the shade of the tree, and having water, and then get back fresh to the deceased. And this is depicted on the tombs, in our tombs. It shows how the bird flies. Of course, it's a mythological bird, a bird body with a head, a human head. So I think this was a part. And you asked me about why the car appeared behind the king. I think this is a very important question. I assume that the Egyptians at that time were scared of their back. They always, it's now like when you say cover my back, like I emailed my colleague at work because he's saying, oh, okay, I'm not here tomorrow, cover my back. So it's very similar, very much similar.
Why were they all of a sudden scared of their back?
Because you will get troubles from your back because you can't see what is going behind you. So usually the king is escorted by a text saying Sa'anch F, and sometimes Ha'ef. Ha'ef is behind him, all protection and life. So Ha means behind, F, him, is suffix pronoun. So behind him, all life and protections, which means these texts will help the king. The Egyptian believed on abstract meaning. That's why they depicted the offerings, the texts, and they believe when they write this, it protects the kings. So, with the same context, they depicted the ka. So the ka is a source of protection for normal people. That's number one. Number two, it's responsible for transforming the legitimacy from the father to his son. So I think this is a very appropriate location for the ka. And but when I studied the exceptional one of Ramses III, I realized that the ka in this context is not just an object, or not. In many scholars long time ago, they defined the ka as a spirit, which I think is not very correct, but is quoted with several texts. One of the texts say di f anch. Di means give, f suffix pronoun, he, and life. May he give life and prosperity. So once I found these texts, I realized that the ka is not just an object or spirit, it is a divine form, but it's not a god, but it's a very high rank, which is a power, vital force. It is very active, vital force. So that's why it has the ability to give life. By the way, only gods in ancient Egypt were allowed to have this term, DF. Even the king can say F. Why? Because he gives. So the God only one who can provide with life, stability, prosperity, health, happiness. But who is receiving all this? The king. So he don't have the right to say F. So I think it is higher than the king himself. It's supreme power in ancient Egypt.
His name, his ka, and the ka is the name or the depiction, has greater authority and greater legitimacy than the king himself. Then,
of course.
Interesting. And so, but it's a life giving. It's a force. It's a higher order, but it's not a spirit. Why is it not a spirit?
Because it's not. It is power. Spirit, I think, we had different like definitions for spirits in Egypt. We have like the Egyptian personality, which consists of the Ba, Ren, Ka. So these components are very different from the Ka. And the more we study, for example, this depictions through several periods, we start to understand more in the kingship.
Interesting.
Let's say I told you now about 2 types, but the third one, which I'm not studying nowadays, I'm doing the Old Kingdom, but I have to like raise attention, or it's not worthy to mention. There is a third type for the royal Ka. You know Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut had a problem. She's a woman, and at that time, it's like it was so difficult for her to be the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. So, in her temple in Dir al-Bahari, west bank of Thebes, she depicted a story. We call it divine birth. The divine birth is numerous depictions, like a story of her mother with God Ammon. And I'm not going through the whole story, but I will say just a summary, that the God Ammon appeared in the form of her father, Thutmose I. And he said that you will be pregnant for Ahmuza, her mother, Hatshepsut mother, and your daughter will be the king of Upper and Lower Egypt. And then God Khnum, the one who is creating the babies, the royal baby, so he created Hatshepsut and her Ka on a pottery wheel. So in this case, Hatshepsut was provided with a legitimacy. So at this point, she needed the Ka to support her. So I think another example to show the importance of the Ka, of the royal Ka, was after Hatshepsut, Amenhotep III. He had a big problem. His mother is a foreign woman, and for Egyptians also, they are not very happy to have a king with unroyal blood. So he decided to build a temple, which is Luxor Temple. Luxor Temple, as Lani Bell defined it in his article GNES 44, as the house of the royal Ka. Why? Because there is a birth room where Amenhotep III repeated the same story. Yes, and to show him as a newborn, as created baby, and with his Ka. And many representations of the royal Ka are scattered on the walls of Luxor Temple. I would say scattered on all the monuments in ancient Egypt. So I think that's very important. The interesting thing that when I started to study the Old Kingdom, I found it's like it is the main core of understanding what happened after, because it's so clear in the New Kingdom and during the Ptolemaic period and Roman period. But without understanding the royal Ka during the Old Kingdom, I think we are missing a very important part. So the thing which encouraged me to apply for the AFLOX in order to create this catalog, and as I said, it would like, while doing this catalog, I would be like extending the studies course, and I think I would get more interpretations of many questions in my mind. Why it was represented, how, the difference between several periods. So,
can I ask where will people be able to find this catalog? When will it be ready for people to view?
Okay, that's an important question. I was lucky to apply for the International Congress of Egyptology. We have this congress every 4 years. It's like World Cup. Yeah. So it was great opportunity to be accepted. Same day I got the AFOX fellowship in Oxford. Same day, I think it's like it was Friday. Yeah, it's one. I got a mail like at 4:00, and the other one was 5. So, yeah.
Fortuitous day, you should know.
Yeah, because I applied for the project here, and I applied because the Congress is next August in Leiden University. So when I was here last month, I had an email from Leiden, and they selected my topic, this work, to be granted. Yeah, it is. I don't know how I have to say the amount or not, but it is good. It's not. Good. Yeah, that's what I would say. So
amazing. Yeah. And then when will people be able to access it?
Exactly. So once the Congress finished, it will be the process of publication.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So most of my work here will be published there in Leiden.
Brilliant.
And yeah.
Brilliant.
So this is one of the things like very promising. That's I'm working, and I know that's like where I'm going to present this work soon.
Brilliant. And so when does your fellowship finish here in Oxford?
My fellowship finished in early 2024, but I have to be in person here until 4th of July. But this is one of the things I have to mention, and I have to thank AFOX so much. And that's what they deserve. For a reason, I just, when I got this grant, and that I have to present the whole work, I would say it's project needs some time, So they kindly extend my accommodation. Yes. Until the end of July. So I would fly from here to Leiden straight away. So I think it's like nearly a month. Nice. So which is a great opportunity to be here in the library with this vibrant, simulating community of Egyptologists, and not just Egyptologists, scholars in ancient civilizations. So yeah, this was great.
What's next? What's after the publication? What's your any other future research projects that you're hoping to do?
Yeah, what I'm doing now is the Old Kingdom, and I'm publishing an object at the Gem Museum, the Grand Egyptian Museum. It's unpublished for King Amenhotep I, and I'm happy it is unpublished. So I think it enrich the scientific research in Egyptology. What I'm looking forward, I think by ending the Old Kingdom, and I said it before, I have said the Middle and New Kingdoms, I think that only one part left. It is the late period until the Greek-Roman period. So I have to study this and then publish all this together as a book.
Brilliant. And then will we see the period of the decline of the royal cow, or do you think there's going to be more continuity?
They continued. Yeah, the only part which is very obscure, dynasties from like first and second. Really? I didn't find up to now. So every day while you are working, you find more and more and more fragments. So, like for example, for the Old Kingdom, when I started the work, it was just Pepys II. Now I have material for 5th dynasty, like Userkaf, Sahray, Nefer-ir-Kara, 6th dynasty Teti, Pepi I, Pepi II. So different kings with numerous monuments and objects like I went to Berlin in February, traveled there just to work on one of the scenes of Sahray, and some fragments of Sahray escorted with the royal car. So my work not only just the reliefs in the temples, but also the objects with display in the museum and sometimes in a storage. And this happened this visit as well. I had an invitation to teach at Swansea University last month, and I gave the talk. And then at the Egyptian Center, the curator, Dr. Ken Griffin, was so kind to escort me to the storage and show me things. So I found there's a fragment there. I told him, this is a part of a royal car and possibly for Hatshepsut. He said, you have to publish it as soon as possible. So this is one of the plans as well. Wow. Yeah. Wow. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. And best of luck in Leiden with the conference, and really appreciate you talking to us today.
Thank you very much, Claire, and it's a big pleasure to be here, and I'm honored to be with you today and looking forward to seeing you again.
Awesome. Likewise.
Awesome. Thank you.
Likewise.
Okay.